Hello, my name is Liliana Amaya, and I'm going to be doing the CCR on Carmina. Um, so the whole purpose and story of Carmina is about a girl with synesthesia, which is the neurological phenomenon of being able to hear colors and taste words and so on. So kind of the sensations of the stimulation are kind of interconnected and and whatnot. So the character Carmina, her name derives from the name Carmen, which translates to song or poem in Latin, and the color carmine is a deep red. So kind of a combination of these two kind of interprets into the name, into the idea of synesthesia. Now, Carmina in the story um, has been in this research facility, and in the story, these doctors are kind of abusing and just overdoing and corrupting their studies. And within this time, our main character here, Carmina, has been doled down of her capabilities um, with the props that I'm using in this that will later be shown with close-ups and whatnot. And so she's she intakes these pills every single day, and then one day she decides not to take it. She reaches her breaking point, and so she starts to tally off the amount of days that she's not taking her pills. And when she finally kind of goes into a relapse in a sense and starts dreaming and seeing things, she kind of comes to the realization of what she has and who she is. So I'm going to do kind of a play-by-play of and break down everything and how I use different techniques to portray that. So here I start off with a long shot of the main character and kind of pull into a medium close-up. And within that, I also use a layering to kind of put the title in the background. And I use this clipboard and this deep red to kind of foreshadow something for the future. And here's this medium close-up. And then I go into this close-up of her face. And so, as I was saying before with the props, I use these earmuffs, these all-white earmuffs, and these clear glasses. And so the purpose of the earmuffs are to refrain her from hearing sound, so that she doesn't see the colors. And the purpose of her wearing these glasses is to refrain her from seeing any color at all. And so I go into a point of view shot, and everything is in black and white, is in from her perspective, and she's looking at these two doctors from the inside of the facility. And here I use the production company, which is actually Synesthetic Productions, kind of referring back to the issue at hand. And kind of pull into the doctors discussing something and go into a medium shot and point of view of the two doctors, a point of view from Carmina's perspective and a medium shot of them side by side. And I use a low angle to portray Carmina as inferior and the doctors as superior to her, since they are holding her against her will in this facility. And so here I do an over-the-shoulder shot to kind of get a perspective of Carmina and her kind of reaction to everything that is happening. And I also use a high angle, again, from the perspective of the doctors to show their superiority to Carmina. Again, I do a graphic match back to this, to the doctors kind of discussing something, and I decided to mute the audio here because I will do a rundown of kind of the audio later. So this kind of discussion between the two comes into play, foreshadows for later. And so then I do a close-up of the doctor pulling out a pill. And this pill serves to take away taste from Carmina, and So I use a sense of layering here and some quick shots to kind of have that sense of discombobulation and and whatnot. So here is marking down the amount of days that she's been here for, and her using the pill to use it as a tally of the amount of days. So then I do a pull in into a medium close up of her, and then a crossfade into or a cross dissolve into her dreaming. And in this dream, I use a kind of a really bright, dreamy filter to portray that she's dreamy, and really bright colors to make that pop. And the purpose of the vinyl being bright red, being with the use of bright red happening a lot in this. Here I use an extreme close-up of her waking up abruptly to to hearing the sound and seeing these colors. She's taken off guard and she goes back to sleep. And the use of acting kind of is really important to this, because the use of like her reaction and whatnot to all of this kind of it really influences and emphasizes the theme of drama and intensity and suspense. What's happening? So here she goes back to sleep and she sees color, and in the background there will be sound, as we will see later, and her again waking up abruptly and looking up and seeing that everything is still in black and white. She's confused and believes that she's going mad. Again, she falls back to sleep and seeing things kind of in confusion. Now I have her reaching out to the baby, kind of confused, and then I use a sense of parallelism between the two to kind of so that the viewer gets a sense of realization that is her, that she's not only dreaming about herself, but she's having a flashback. And so here I use a kind of a cutaway of, an action match of her going back and that her reaching her hand up and then her pulling her hand down. And I also use layering here to portray her kind of, again, discombobulation and confusion and just kind of overall just distress. So here I do another close-up of her looking off into the distance, and then a point of view shot of her looking at the exit side. And so here I use a lot of jump cuts from her running to kind of increase that sensation of fear and her running away from the doctors that are portrayed here. And so I use kind of for lighting, I use a low-key lighting and kind of a red wash, and I use red lighting to kind of do like I guess, like show the difference between this all white dull color and comparison to this red, this dark red. And I use strobe lights to kind of portray that sense of emergency and alarm. And so here with the doctors, I use all blue because people with synesthesia have the ability to also read people and see them in color based off of their emotion and their ambiance. So here at first she sees the doctors in all blue, and then immediately changes to red once the doctor lifts up the pen. Now I'll do a rundown with kind of the observed in with sound. So I start off in this all white room and the mise en scène of her wearing all white clothing and white earmuffs in an all white room, and there's a humming sensation in the background you can hear here, And the way I use that noise, that asynchronous sound of, kind of supposed to be portraying the facility, was by recording the sound of a feedback from an amplifier that I have at home. And so I kind of have that drown out throughout the whole thing. And then from here we have our first kind of diegetic sound of, the dialogue. And so I use a muffled voice from the sound perspective of Carmina, because she's wearing these earmuffs. So he says, make sure everything's on tight, and saying that is only for precaution, which, as I said before, is kind of a foreshadowing to what happens in the future. I decided to keep the diegetic sounds of the rustling of her, kind of between her and the doctor. And then she goes off into dream, and here in this dream, I again use the diegetic sound of the record. And the song I used here was Rakowski March from Hungarian Rhapsody by Franz Liszt. And the song is a very intense song, so I decided to use that to kind of emphasize the intensity of this dream and her waking up. So that abrupt ending kind of goes then into her waking up abruptly like this and back to the humming sound. She falls asleep again, and here I use a more subtle song, Nocturne Opus number 9, Opus 9 number 2 in E flat by Friedrich Chopin, which adds to the dreaminess of her seeing these colors, and that dream being a point of view shot for the time being. She wakes up again abruptly, back to the color and the muffling sound, the lack of color. And she falls back into the dream, and the song continues with the baby seeing these colors. And I use this song by recording it myself, me playing it myself, and I use that in there. And so with that sound, unfortunately, when I recorded it, originally I could not use diegetic, so I had to create my own Foley of me hitting a wall, because the sound of it in the racquetball room where I actually ended up recording this was too echoed, and there was too much background noise for me to use it. So I created my own Foley. And then here, when she takes off the earmuffs, I use an actual synchronous sound of the object, which is the earmuffs hitting the floor, and I use the sound perspective of that high pitched. And that noise, I used that. The way that I did that was I recorded my washing machine turning on, and the highest pitch of that, I isolated it and elongated it and increased the pitch of it to kind of have that a really loud white noise pitch, to kind of create that sensation of, after her not hearing sound for so long, hearing it kind of for the first time in reality and not just in her dream is kind of damaging to her. And again, the synchronous sound of the glasses falling and her hitting the wall and taking that breath and then looking at the. And then here, with the song, I kind of like a theme that I use was, after doing some research on horror themes and suspenseful themes, a lot of them use dissonance, kind of dissonant chords, and so I decided to use that here, and so I did a A sharp and A natural dissonant to start with, very fast paced to kind of go along with the strobe. and then I did an octave lower to kind of increase that intensity. And then when the doctors come in, I use another dissonance to kind of add dissonance to the original dissonance, and I use a D sharp and D natural along with that. And I end it there. Now, the purpose of this overall suspenseful and dramatic is to kind of give light, not give light, but kind of give the audience a realization of the reality of synesthesia, because but with a twist, because synesthesia is an actual thing and may seem formalistic, but it actually is a realistic sensation that people feel. And so within this, it kind of gives the sense of kind of importance to the situation itself, and how people could easily be manipulated through their abilities, because it's seen as something kind of unrealistic. And so with this, I kind of kept it very simple. I used iMovie to do a lot of my editing and to create my sound. I use also iMovie and iTunes, excuse me. And within this, I put my story together and my interpretation of kind of my idea of someone being held against their will in a research facility with having this amazing ability, and kind of wanting to portray this to the audience in a sense of drama and suspense and whatnot. So with this theme and with this in genre, it could be distributed and viewed through media forms. Well, the trailer itself or the intro itself can be viewed through YouTube and other video sources, but the movie itself will be distributed more of, rather than in a big production company. Hopefully, starts off small in a more indie company, because it's kind of it is realistic, but it's very it's more of an artistic approach, rather than it's an artistic approach to a very serious issue, which will reflect more to the kind of I guess indie viewers and whatnot. So yeah, so within that is the my critical reflection. I also have more to add upon kind of the production of everything. Within the recording, there was a lot of difficulties with sound, because this facility was very open, and the sound carried a lot. So if there was any background noise, it would easily carry over. So I had to delete a lot of the audio and kind of create my own and later add. As you can hear in this shot right here, it was very kind of an open sound, and so kind of leaving it a little hard to kind of understand what the person's saying. And with this shot, it was very loud, but I feel like that was purposeful for her dream. And then lastly, the editing was probably the hardest thing of the whole project itself, because I realized then after that a lot of the shots that I had were very close cut shots, so it was hard to have everything kind of flow together. But I guess I used that a lack of fluidity and those sharp cuts to kind of add to the intensity of suspense. And hopefully it's portrayed that way to the audience. And lastly, extracting the media was very, very difficult, being that I didn't have a lot of storage. Originally, a lot of my storage, as you can see here, a lot of the stuff has gone missing. A lot of the storage was kind of lost, or I opened up a lot of storage to kind of download the extract itself, but then after, it wouldn't let me extract, saying that I had, as you see here, missing camera. When I would unplug my, it wouldn't let me extract because it said that I was using the footage, and then when I took out the camera source, it said that a lot of the film was missing. So I had to download all of the footage to my computer, then making up more space, then putting it on a hard drive, and then deleting all of that, and then having the footage there itself, and replacing every single um, source of footage and re-editing sort of everything to kind of to have it pop up again, and then finally I could extract all the media and post it on YouTube. So that was finally my ending of the extract itself, and I hope you enjoyed Carmina.